Disclaimer. The content presented in this program is entirely satire, and the mainstream media always tells the truth. COVID was true, and you should be vegan, and everything James Devon Johnson says isn't real, and James has not achieved any real-world success and is very financially poor. Do not use these words against him in court because the entire show is satire, and he really loves President Biden and feminists. James thinks that federal agents are very respectable people who are not fat nerds. Please do not take this program seriously and get your booster injections as soon as possible.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the JD Show. I, of course, am your host, JD. I got Mav in the house with me. If you guys caught my election live stream, he was actually on with me. We talked a little bit about what we thought was going to happen with the election, Trump, politics here in America in general. So he's back in, well, not back, but first time live in the studio. So we're going to be covering some Trump topics, post-election topics, Hollywood, what's happening with Diddy Combs right now, as well as some other interesting conspiracy stuff. So, Maverick, thank you so much for coming in, brother.
Yes,
how are you?
I'm good. In the flesh.
In the flesh, man. I love it.
Yeah,
so you just came down from NorCal, yeah?
No, I came down from Nevada. So,
okay.
Yeah, I live in Nevada and
Nice.
drove in. I don't miss the traffic. I used to live in LA. So, traffic is brutal, man.
Yeah, that LA traffic is absolutely insane, especially on a Saturday.
Everybody. I don't know where everybody was going south. Maybe they're going to like Disneyland or I don't know, but it was crazy.
Dude, there's so much going on in Southern California.
Yeah.
It's absolutely maddening, but glad you made it, dude.
Yes.
So last we talked, we were like, oh, who's going to win?
Yeah.
You know, I was nervous, but
Right.
thank God Trump came out on top.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Post-election, a lot of different things have been happening. He's selected a lot of cabinet seats.
Yeah.
Looks like Republicans have taken the House and the Senate too. So it's all very exciting stuff.
They did. And what's really interesting is that I thought the race was going to be a lot closer. Like, I was in the streets, asking people. I did like street interviews. I was doing a lot of polls, and it seemed to be a lot closer than I thought, but it was a complete landslide. And it was, I believe it was, the final numbers were 226 to 312 or something like that.
Yeah, no, definitely a red wave landslide victory.
Yeah.
And not only did Trump win the Electoral College, he won the popular vote.
Right.
And apparently he got more voting numbers than any other Republican in history for winning the popular vote too.
Which is very interesting because if you remember in 2020, Joe Biden had about 86 million more than what Kamala had. So people were asking like, okay, where are those people? Like,
yeah, no, it's really weird because even Trump's numbers, he got a lot more votes in 2020 last time too.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more focus on this election this time around.
True. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that both nominees, Democrat and Republican nominees, got way less votes this time around.
So do you think that is like more of like, okay, I'm just sitting this one out? Because a lot of people were saying that too. They're like, both candidates are shit, so maybe I'm just going to sit it out. Like, do you think that was happening? Or it could have been, here we go, those people didn't exist.
See, that's what I'm thinking because it's just really weird. Like the first election in U.S. history that was mostly based on mail-in ballots had the largest turnout in U.S. history, like record-breaking numbers. But this time around, it's like, I feel like on both sides, for the Democrats and the Republicans, this election was a lot more important than the 2020 election. Yeah. But yet, millions less votes. Right. It's really strange to me. So I think it has to be the mail-in ballots.
Yeah. So it might be that. It might be a mixture to where, where a lot of people sat out and maybe some voter fraud. We don't know, to where happened in last election. And, maybe it was, people getting counted. I don't know if you saw those videos where one lady was saying that this is her first election that she was actually voting in, and the previous elections she never voted in, and she went to a voter station and she was looking up her voter history and somebody was voting for her. So maybe a little bit of that, maybe some deceased people was getting in on the action. So I think it could be a combination of all that. But either way, I mean, it was a red wave landslide.
Yeah,
Even
which is what needed to happen. Yeah.
Right. And even in California, she barely won California.
Barely, yeah. A lot of counties got flipped reds. I think I'm not familiar with the northern counties, but Orange County, where we're at now, got flipped red. Riverside County, San Bernardino County.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's huge.
It is. It is.
Especially like Southern California being so heavily saturated with liberal Democrat voters.
Right.
But a thing that many people forget is California has more registered Republican voters than any other state. It's just there's so many people here. Even though we have more registered Republican voters in this state, there's still a lot more Democrat voters. That's why California has been staying blue for so long. But we almost flipped the state.
Yeah, almost flipped it, and it just goes to show you how desperate the people need change. It just goes to show you how dire the situation is when it comes to our finances, when it comes to our safety, the agenda, all the shit that we're just under attack and just layers of it. So now it's like, okay, well, people are tired and they just showed up. And they were just like, we need change and we need somebody who's, a leader and, able to keep, costs down, not get taxed to death and, keep us safe and have some sanity in this country. So I think that's what people were saying when they were voting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a poll statistic. It was like, I think 75. Between 75, 80%, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Let's just say 75% for simplicity's sake. 75% of the country was saying they are not happy with the direction America was currently headed into pre-election.
Yeah.
So the majority of Americans did not approve of the Biden administration, but yet millions of Americans still voted for Kamala. So that tells you that a lot of people were still dissatisfied with the direction that we're heading, but somehow thought Kamala was going to invoke some type of change.
Right.
Fortunately, thank God, because I think we just saved the free world with Trump being elected. But thank God the majority of Americans saw right through that. Right. We're like, no. We
would have been fucked. I'll flat out say it, because anytime you have a candidate who's throwing a bunch of celebrities at us and not getting to the policies, red flag number one. Red flag number two is she gets caught trying to flip people like me. She literally emailed me and was like, well, one of her, not her directly, but it was a company that was hired by her saying, hey, we need your voice. You need to be, you're a leader in your space. And I have the whole email. And they wanted to flip me. They wanted to turncoat me. And I don't know if A, they didn't do their due diligence, or B, they just knew exactly who I was, because I exposed her about, the whole debate with Trump and everything else. And you remember that whole earring gate thing that was going on? People were saying she wore earpiece.
It's like a microphone earring or something.
And people were saying it. I started that.
Really?
I was one of the, me and a few other creators brought that to the forefront, and it exploded. It was on Forbes, it was on New York Post, Daily Mail. It was everywhere. And it went super viral, and that put a radar on me. It had to, because her campaign doing research, trying to see, what creators are in the space, talking about, the election and politics in general. And I feel like I was targeted. I feel like that her campaign just specifically reached out to me. I'm a Black creator. And, they need, people like me who have a voice in the space to talk about, what politics and everything else that I talk about, government and truth and everything else. So if all of a sudden I start talking about Kamala and being like, oh, yeah, she is great. For one, it looks weird. And then two, you feature me, bashing on you about, potentially, allegedly, having an earpiece. Then you reach out to that person you'd be like, hey, come on over. And mind you, she raised $1 billion. So she has a ton of cash to throw around. She gave Beyonce $10 million. She gave Lizzo, I think, like $3 million. Eminem almost got 2 million. So she has a ton of cash to throw around. So I don't know how much she was gonna pay me, but I didn't go down that far. Like I wanted to poke around and kind of see, but then I didn't want that used against me and be like, oh, he's emailing back. And
so since you brought that up, I've been reading some articles how I guess some of these people, like these influencers, podcasters that were paid to promote Kamala and do interviews with her or like show up at the rallies or whatever, something about how it violates campaign law. Are you familiar with that?
Somewhat, yeah. So it's a gray area, which I've heard. And, being that it's kind of like under the table type of scenario to where you're not, disclosing that you're endorsing this person as a paid sponsor or partnership, then it gets into that world to where it could be illegal and whatnot.
Right, because Kamala paid to go on the Call Me Daddy podcast, right? Yeah, so that's interesting in itself because she shouldn't have to pay. She's a presidential candidate.
Right.
She shouldn't have to pay to go on a podcast.
She paid, which this is the most bizarre thing. So during that whole campaign, she's, having celebrities and whatnot endorse her. But then for that podcast, she spends $100,000 because they're located in Los Angeles. She didn't want to go to Los Angeles. She was like, hey, come to DC. So they spend $100,000 in a hotel room, changing the whole room into a podcast studio. Who is greenlighting this? Like, why are you spending that much money for one? And two, it makes no sense. You're traveling anyways, and I know you have a tight schedule and whatnot, but that type of frivolous spending, $100,000, that doesn't even seem right. It's like somebody's in on the take or somebody on her campaign was just like, hey, let's just get the bag.
Yeah, no, that's what I think it was. Because if you look at the payout details for like all of her financing, again, like $1 billion,
right,
there's a great amount of that went into the staffing fees.
Right.
Where if you look at Trump's, 582 million. Over half of what she collected went into paying her staff.
Right.
If you look at Trump's, nowhere near those numbers.
10 million. He spent 10 million.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Insane.
That type of gap, that has to be investigated. I'm like, okay, well, either A, she doesn't care about, her donors, or B, she's completely oblivious and, whoever's running that campaign got rich in the process and knew she was going to lose.
Yeah, so that's actually something that is kind of like my own little conspiracy I drummed up in my head. I'm thinking like, the numbers don't make sense. Anybody who looks at it, you're going to question it, just like yourself.
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, the Democrats, unless, again, like Obama, he's a smart guy. I think anyone could agree Obama's a smart guy.
Yes.
I just don't see Obama being able to rationalize, like, and expecting a win from Kamala Harris.
Right.
He was caught, they read his lips talking to Joe Biden, how like she's a weaker candidate than Joe and stuff. Right. So he didn't believe in Kamala. No. I really doubt a guy like Barack is actually going to believe that Kamala can win. Same thing with a lot of the other smart people in the Democratic Party.
Right.
What if they knew they were going to lose, but decided to just fill in their own pockets as much as possible?
Could be. It could be. I think that, having that type of support and still losing is like, okay, somebody's in on the take. Mm-hmm. You have to be. You spent $1 billion and going into $20 million into debt, and you still lost that big. So it's like, well, somebody was in on the know, whether it be her campaign managers, even Obama, what he said. So I don't think they had any faith in her. And I have my own little conspiracy. I think Joe Biden voted for Trump.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the online space talking about that because he did so many like interesting moves right after Kamala took the ticket that hurt her campaign significantly. Right. Like him going on national TV and calling Trump supporters garbage or whatever.
Yeah,
that to me, like it almost seemed very intentional,
very strategic, right?
Yeah,
yeah. Because here's the thing: so you say that. You have your vice president now campaigning. You're saying stuff as POTUS right now, right? So you're still in that position. So what you say holds weight.
Yeah.
So anything you do is under a microscope. And then two, you put on a Trump hat, for optics, and it's like, who's doing that during election time when your opponent, you're putting on the hat. Then, if you remember his wife, Joe Biden, when she voted, what did she have on? She had a full-on Republican red suit. So I pay attention to the symbolism as well. So it's like, why are you wearing that specific color? Why are you voting? Going to the polls. So all these things I'm looking at, I'm like, you know what? He's probably pissed off that they ran a coup on him and they just threw him out.
Oh, they definitely ran a coup on him, no doubt whatsoever. Because I remember like the days leading up to like once the tickets got swapped.
Yeah.
Joe and his wife were on national TV every day almost because they were being questioned about his cognitive ability to even run, and they're so firm, like, no, we're not backing down, like Joe Biden's fine. And I could tell is very genuine. Again, they speak on so many subjects where they're not genuine at all, but when I was watching that, I was like, they really firmly believe like Joe Biden should be there. And once he goes down, it gets flip-flopped. Yeah, no, that's super sus.
Yeah, and I think that, to be honest, he felt some type of way about it, and then he starts doing all these little things that
like she would go on live TV, say like, oh yeah, the situation is this, and then Joe Biden goes on right after her. The situation is actually the opposite.
Right.
And then it makes Kamala look like a bumbling idiot.
Right. I mean, she is the word salad queen, but I mean, all in all, I think that, if that's your backup and he's not, he's saying, everything opposite at this point, he definitely, I don't think he was blindsided. I don't think he saw it coming. And, he was so confident when he was saying, hey, I'm not dropping out. I'm here to stay. And then the next week he was gone. Yeah. So I think that he voted for Trump. He was pissed off, and I think he might have been, he was slighted. And
you saw the footage of Joe when Trump came to the White House recently. Yeah. He was like happy.
He was, right?
Yeah, he's not standoffish at all.
Right. He was kind of like, oh, this is over. I'm glad you're in office. And another thing, too, is that it's pretty interesting when he, made his speech not too long ago after the whole thing was said and done with the election. He gets up there. He has a pep in his step. His words are very clear now, and he's very on top of it now as far as his speeches and whatnot. He's a little bit more prompt, and I was like, that's interesting. So it's like, well, was that an act, or are you just over it now? Like the pressure is off now to where you feel free and you're like, okay, I feel good now. So I don't know. One of the two.
I mean, he definitely does have those sparks of good energy. We saw that during the entire time that he was president. True. It'd be like, coin toss each time he get up for a press conference. Like, is he going to totally fumble this conference, or is he going to, speak clearly? I think he probably was just having a good day that day. But that also makes me wonder too, because we talk about who actually runs the world, all these deep conspiracies. I know right now a lot of people think Israel secretly runs the world. There's other people who think the Catholic Church is the dark oligarch of everything that happens. All these different conspiracies, and I've never ruled any of them out. I always thought, okay, there's really no solid evidence to indicate that any one of these interesting conspiracies is actually true. Yeah. But based on the information available, it's probable, right? But after this election, it makes me wonder, maybe there is no deep, dark conspiracy, that there are some ultra powerful people that really do control everything. Because we've seen just the stupidity of government come out in full force this election season. Yeah. We saw the assassination attempt, for example. At the bare minimum, that's complete, just pure stupidity from the Secret Service. I mean, during the entire last 4 years, we saw the incompetence of every single government agency, especially the FBI. Right. Scandals with the CIA coming out. Right. It's all these major fumbles. Is there really a super intelligent dark power running the world?
I mean, it could be. I mean, you got to look at, from way back in the day and looking into the secret societies, there's a ton of them. So you don't know if, some are still around today. Obviously, the biggest one being the Illuminati, the Freemasons and whatnot. But then it's like, okay, well, if everybody knows about it, how secret is it now, right? So, like, do they change their name? Do they change their methods? Is it a new regime? A lot of questions, for sure. I believe one or two things. I think that, like you said, there's no driver in the seat now. And I pay attention to media, movies, and whatnot, because they always put it in the movies. Because the Pentagon, they have a film fund. You can look it up. They have a department that works directly with Hollywood. So they do a lot of propaganda, a lot of movies. They fund a lot of stuff. So if you look at the movie Leave the World Behind, right? So the production company, Higher Ground Productions, is owned by Michelle and Barack Obama. Now, in that movie, I remember one line where he said, the billionaire friend was telling the guy, who got a head start. He was saying, hey, there's no driver in the seat. There's nobody at the helm, at the top. It's just, dog eat dog. Everybody's just trying to get theirs. And, that's pretty much it. Like, they never knew what was really happening in that movie. So it could be like that type of scenario to where there was, a secret society running things, but now it's like everybody's just trying to get their piece of the pie, and
right.
There is no shadow government.
Like, in my opinion, if there was some secret society, some type of shadow government, the establishment is what we like to call them. Mm-hmm. That would definitely be the leaders in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But even if that exists, this election shows how little control they really do have, because they lost in such an incredible defeat.
Right.
So that gives me some hope. Like, okay, there really is a fighting chance, because Donald Trump came on that, I forget the name of that podcast, dude with the mustache.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But he was questioned on there because they asked him about, like, the deep state, what his thoughts are. Yeah. They asked if, like, the president really is the most powerful person in the world. Mm-hmm. And he said, yes, 100%. President is the most powerful person in the world. Mm-hmm. So me truly believing that Trump isn't part of a deep state or some type of shadow government, and him coming out and say that, makes me think, like, okay, well, that leaves some hope for the world then, because there isn't one power fully controlling everything.
Now, if you want to, flip the coin on the other side, there is BlackRock. So, if you don't know who BlackRock is, they're the biggest asset manager in the world, and they have a lot of influence. They were connected to both of the assassination attempts, where, if you look into the backgrounds of both assailants that try to take out Trump.
They both participated in some, like, advertising campaign for BlackRock. Correct. Which is
a little sus, right? Yeah. So you got to look at that, and you got to look at, now they're starting their own stock exchange, and then you also got to look into their methods and their how they read markets and whatnot. They have an AI called Aladdin. Now, Aladdin is it watches markets, but it's so advanced to where the average user would never have access to this type of technology. But it reads markets. It reads how people are feeling about big tech, or the climate of war and everything else, because all that ties in financially too. Mm-hmm. So they have this thing called Aladdin that can predict to a T when how markets move.
Yeah, I've heard of similar technologies. I actually have a contact of mine who invited me to join some type of platform like that. Apparently it's all AI managed. Like minimum buy-in is $50,000. Mm-hmm. They apparently take like 20% of the revenue that's generated through like being involved. Okay. But they guarantee you a minimum 30% return on your investment every single year, which that's solid.
And that's all AI.
That's all AI managed. Wow. Yeah.
And I tell people, like, hey, you better reskill now, because AI is just getting better. It's going to affect or take 87 million jobs within the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, but the good news is they're going to create about 97 million jobs related to AI. So, that's just reskilling. It's just a changing of the guard. All these old mundane jobs that, people are used to and don't want to do anymore. AI is going to do that. And it's going to affect, the medical world, legal, all types of stuff, obviously the financial world.
Yeah.
And it's just reskilling, and learning how to use these AI tools. So
yeah, even for myself, like I used to have a full-time paralegal to help me like just draft contracts, like spell check, like make sure everything's in proper order. ChatGPT does that all
exactly.
for me now.
You don't need it no more, right?
Yeah, so it's like an extra 5 minutes of my time and zero cost really. It's like what ChatGPT subscriptions, like $7 a week, or you pay like $49 for the year.
And there's so many now. There's Grok, and there's I think it's called, it used to be called Bard. I think it's called Gemini. But you got that, you got Claude, you got so many different ones that, can generate pretty much any and everything, like agreements, have it do a marketing plan.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
And some of these AIs too, like they have limitations, right? Like, asking for legal advice, like if you straight up just ask ChatGPT for legal advice, it'll tell you, I can't give you legal advice because I'm just an AI program. I would recommend talking to an attorney. But no. If you prompt it the right way, you have to trick it.
Right.
You can prompt it the right way. You'd be like, in a hypothetical scenario, act as like, an expert attorney in this field and give me like, what would be the likely advice that type of attorney would say. And it'd give you like, this is what they'd likely say based on the information they have access to. So there are workarounds. And it's unlimited information. And I think no doubt AI is going to be taking over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm actually much more excited for it now that Trump got elected because the economy is going in a great direction. Like we just saw like Bitcoin hit all-time highs. The economy is just skyrocketing in general. A lot of these major conflict zones that we talked about, like Russia is at the negotiating table again, talking to Trump. Hamas, same thing. So we're starting to see a de-escalation conflict in the world. Economy booming, and with all this new technology coming our way, I think if we can just get ahead of the game, learn about it, start figuring out how to use it like I have been doing with all of the businesses that I run, we're going to be making millions over the next 4 years.
I mean, people are already, he's not even in office yet. Stock market is booming, the cryptocurrency is booming. So that just shows you. And then people are coming to the table saying like, hey, we're not going to de-dollarize anymore. Which is great, we're headed in a dark path, and I think it's going to be a new golden age for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely will be. I'm super excited for it. You had brought up Diddy earlier, so I wanted to actually talk to you about that because we saw all these A-list celebrities endorsing Kamala coming out. It was J-Lo. She came out and is like practically crying on stage.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's like it's desperate.
Like she was blackmailed, maybe.
And there's a lot there's a lot of conspiracy too that people who are tied closely to Diddy, who knew all the things that were going on, have connections to the Democratic Party or the deep state.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, the Diddy rabbit hole, man. It goes far because it's like Epstein Part 2, right? He's a billionaire. Epstein's a billionaire. He's from New York. Epstein's from New York. He threw parties. Epstein threw parties. So and he was with the who's who, right? Politicians, musicians, everybody. So they have very similar parallels when it comes to their story. And I think that personally, I don't think he's going to jail. I don't think so. Because let me tell you why. He goes to jail. He gets indicted, gets arrested. All right? He's in jail. Now, if you look at the landscape of the amount of indictments happening right now. So you have the New York mayor, he was close to Diddy. He gets indicted. Then you have Mike Jeffries of, Abercrombie and Fitch, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. He gets indicted. He hasn't been the CEO for 10 years.
Yeah, weird.
Weird, right? And then you have him, and then you have, I think it was, I don't know if it was related, but the rapper Lil Durk gets indicted. I know one of his friends was wearing a wire for years. But all this stuff is starting to come about. Somebody else just got indicted too. I want to say it was, the guy who used to work for Disney and Pixar. He was a big animator for Disney and Pixar. he gets hit with charges for trafficking and abusing minors. And I did a whole deep dive on him, and he possibly could have been tied to Epstein. So, only people get indicted while he goes to jail. Interesting. That's a little weird. Okay. But you could say, okay, that's a coincidence. Maybe, Trump is about to disband the FBI, so they're on overdrive right now. We could say that. Okay. But my thing is that he knows a lot of things. He has a lot of dirt on people. And the fact that now he is, according to reports out there now, it was just reported today that allegedly he is controlling the inmates. So now he's, paying off people. He's trying to get in touch with witnesses through phone calls, three-way phone calls and whatnot. He's trying to fill, people's, commissary. So he's trying to do favors. So that's what the prosecutors say, allegedly. We don't know if they're just saying that in the report. But to have an Epstein situation, that would look way too obvious now. People's eyes are more open than ever right now. They don't trust government.
Especially with the freedom of information, like Elon Musk taking over X especially, where people could post this type of stuff and it not getting flagged and taken down for misinformation. It's like whoever is behind all these atrocious crimes, like they can't stop the spread of information and people talking about it now.
And that's what I mean. The landscape from when Epstein died or killed himself, because I don't think he's dead, from the time now, it's a way different landscape, right? People are they know Pizzagate is real. They know that, there possibly could be a shadow government they're talking about shadow government now going against Trump. Where, Democrats are banding together and saying, hey, we're not, we're not rocking with you. We're going to do our own thing here and kind of pass off things. So they're conspiring to do that now. And so with Diddy, I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think he is going to jail because he may have a long laundry list of people that he can take out before him.
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely possible. It's like I work in the private entertainment space myself. Like I've seen firsthand like the amount of very like rich, powerful people that set up these crazy like private parties, and I've never like seen anything like what you hear about with the P. Diddy stuff, but it's just common out here in Southern California, especially. Same thing going to New York, go to Miami. Like the private party scene is huge. Like, girls are getting paid thousands of dollars to go be atmosphere models at these parties and stuff. A lot of them, like people who don't know about the industry, like they have speculation. They're like, these are all just like secret sex parties and whatnot. It's not the case. A lot of them are just normal parties. Like every single day, practically, there's some multimillionaire or billionaire dude who's got like a crazy ass yacht out here, either between San Diego or LA, big party, like Beverly Hills.
All the time.
Yeah. Like all the time. I got a few friends that have mansions up in Beverly Hills.
And nothing goes on there, and they're just hanging out, partying and whatnot. But, when you get to a certain level, then you have the, hey, everybody leave because the real party's about to start kind of the conversation.
Yeah, see, I've never experienced any of that myself, but I know that it'd be easy to pull off just because, like, a lot of these parties, like, you have to sign an NDA just to get into it. And you'll see A-list celebrities there. You'll see, like, politicians. Like I've seen the mayor of LA in some of these parties. And there's always like drugs being passed around or something illegal going on. Like security will like section off something. Like I haven't seen anything like personally that screams like real big red flag. So I was also in the Marines for 10 years, like as a Force Recon Marine. Like intelligence was a big aspect of my training. I've worked with 3-letter agencies. I've had a lot of knowledge on that, being able to just observe things. So I'm always like watching and looking for little things. And surprisingly, I've never experienced any like major red flags.
I do. It's not a crazy story, but I do have something interesting. So I went to Drake's friend's party, and this was in LA. And this was a few years ago. Huge mansion, like one of the biggest mansions in Los Angeles. So they rent that out. And everybody who was anybody was there. And I got invited. It was a black tie event. Got invited by a mutual friend, and we went. So again, ton of celebrities there. You know, Chris Brown was there, Tory Lanez was there, you name it. So there's different levels to the party. Like this mansion is huge, right? And on one level, you get there, and everybody's like, there's a dance floor and everything else, and there's a bar off to the side. And guess who's bartending? It was Diddy.
Whoa, what the hell?
It was Diddy. He was serving to rock, and he was behind the bar, like, you know, kind of like, you know, hey, let's get the party started and all this other stuff. And I was just like, And this is before all the allegations and all that other stuff.
Yeah, well,
right?
a lot of people partied with Diddy. That's the thing too. Like Epstein, Diddy, like those are the only two names that have come out in some type of crazy scandal.
Right.
But no one batted an eye.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like, oh, it's another Justin Bieber. It's another Drake.
Yeah.
You know?
I found it interesting though that he was behind the bar. Like, I'm like, Diddy serving drinks. I don't think that's good. I'm like, I'm not taking any drinks from there. And I've already heard stories like.
What made you feel sus? Because me, like, if I saw A-lister behind the bar for like some crazy party like that, I probably wouldn't think anything of it because I've known like hosts to, you know, want to go behind the bar and help serve drinks and stuff, like depending on their personality. So to me, that doesn't seem abnormal, but to you, it clearly was.
Yeah, because like I grew up in LA and I've heard a lot of stories over the years. And, you know, you'll hear stories about celebrities like being from Los Angeles and whatnot. And, you know, kind of like people talk in circles. So I've always heard stuff and I never experienced any of that. And I kind of just stayed out the way and did my own thing. But again, I did real estate for, you know, 12 years and a lot of celebrities use my homes and whatnot, for events and just, you know, private stays and whatnot. I worked with a lot of production companies and whatnot, but, yeah, never worked with Diddy. Let's be clear on that. And, yeah, when I saw him behind the bar, like kind of an antenna rose up and I was like, he's serving drinks. And now seeing it, I'm like, oh shit, that's real sus. Like, he's serving drinks at a party. Like, and that was the thing. It's been documented now that a lot of, you know, people that came forward said, you know, during his parties, and this wasn't his party per se, but during his parties, he would have separate drinks. So he'll have drinks for the girls and he'll have drinks for the guys. And he'll have like Molly and ecstasy and like different things for different people like at the parties. And it didn't matter if you were, you know, a celebrity or not. Like everybody was like pretty much like drugged. You know, according to, you know, one person, what was her name? I actually met her. Her last name is English, Adriana English. I'm sorry if I forgot her name, but yeah, it was she was the girl that got hired by Diddy for his white parties. And at the parties, she wore a black dress at the white party, so everybody knows who to look for, like as the party favorite type of girl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she wore that black dress at the white party. So she was telling the whole story and just saying like how, you know, how he moved and had separate drinks and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sounds like your intuition was.
Yeah, I was like, I usually don't take drinks from people I don't know anyways. Like I pour my own drink.
Yeah, I'm always a little extra guarded up in LA just because I know the scene up there is crazy. Like I really appreciate the nightlife scene out here in Orange County. I'm not talking about going to the clubs or bars and stuff. That sucks out in Orange County. Yeah. But the private parties, we're talking like the billionaires, multimillionaires throwing these crazy like mansion yacht parties and stuff out here. So like doing atmosphere modeling is one of the main businesses that I have. So like the super hot models getting paid like thousands of dollars just to show up at a party, like that's huge. It's prevalent out here in Orange County. But the thing I've noticed is a lot of the hosts of these parties out here, they don't have Instagram, they don't have social media. A lot of these guys are like married and they don't want any type of liabilities. So they're always very strict on making sure like you don't see drugs out here. Like if someone's getting overly intoxicated, security is removing them from the party.
Yeah.
Top-notch security is another thing that's big out here too.
Yeah.
But as soon as you go up the road to LA and experience the private nightlife scene up there, it's like gloves off.
Yeah.
No one really cares.
Yeah, it's different there. It's a whole different ballgame, and I just think it's just the culture. And again, you know, being from LA and seeing all that, I kind of just stayed away from all that stuff. And I used to be in the industry myself. I used to be a child actor and whatnot. So I did that from 4 years old to 12 years old, and thank God I got out of that stuff, because like a lot of kid actors are fucked up now.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of them, you know, get molested and all kind of crazy shit. So like, yeah, I got out, and it wasn't fun to me anymore after I, you know, got a little older, around 11, 12, 13-ish. And yeah, I got into sports after that, and you know, I was good. But yeah, being up there, man, being in LA, man, it's a whole different ballgame. I heard so many horror stories. It's crazy.
But
like,
you never had to experience any horror stories yourself?
No. My mom was a guard dog. Like I told her I wanted to do like commercials and stuff at a young age, and she was very sharp, and she was just like, yeah, you're not going into any rooms with, you know, this is back then.
Yeah.
And she was just like, no, it's not happening. Like, she was very guardful of me. So like, so yeah, I never had any bad experiences. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
LA is a wild card. Like, fortunately, my crowd of LA contacts I got there, I have a lot of producer contacts, people in the music industry and stuff like that. Most of them are like really conservative, good people, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. But that's my circle that I've developed in LA. Like, I've gone to like, you know, other parties where I didn't really know people there, and it's definitely, you know, the typical like scumbag LA types, right? Yeah. But yeah, there are still some really good people, conservative people up there. An interesting thing too, speaking of how Kamala like reached out to you because like you're a black Instagram influencer talking about politics and stuff. Yeah. Same thing for like a lot of my other black friends up in LA. Yeah. Conservative guys voted for Trump this time around. Right. So that's like another interesting thing too about the whole like demographic of the voting base changing towards being more conservative, like these values that Trump represents. Because Trump set record numbers with the black vote. He won the Latin vote. So minorities and women too, he set record numbers with women. So minorities in general are shifting gears towards conservative values, wanting to be Republicans now. Right. What do you think some of the causes of that are?
People realize that they've been played voting Democrat. People have done their research, and they're tired of getting used for the last 40, 50, 60 years voting for this party and not having any tangibles. That's what it comes down to. And, you know, being that we've had, you know, some of the worst inflation, we've had, you know, people can't afford their groceries. When you go to the gas station, you're going to feel it. Like, you can talk about, oh, Kamala's great, and Joe Biden's, like, okay, go get some gas today. You're going to be pissed off. So it's like, okay, well, people were fed up. And they're just like, well, 4 years ago, before this administration, everything was great. I know a ton of people, especially businessmen and women, were making a ton of money. Everything was great. We had no new wars, and everything was cool. It was safe, and it was just like it was such a shift from that. You know, it was night and day. It was just a complete 180 from that, you know, administration to this one. So I think people were fed up, and they were just comparing and contrasting, and they were like, wait a minute. I can definitely afford this 4 years ago. Now I can't afford it now. Things are going up, but my wages are staying the same, if not even going down further. So I think it just comes down to that. People were waking up, and then, you know, again, just looking into the parties and whatnot, people thought that, you know, the Democrats had, you know, the blue collar person's back and everything else. It's like, well, if you look into their history, well, they actually created the KKK. That's one thing. And then, you know, then you look into the Republican Party. They actually were established by anti-slavery activists and all these different things that people were bringing up and whatnot. And it's insane. Like, even, you know, if you go back into history, you know, obviously Abraham Lincoln, he was a Republican. You had even, a lot of people don't know this, even before George Washington, there was 8 other presidents before George Washington. And even one of those guys, John Hanson, he was a Republican, black president. And people do not know this. And the Democratic Party was trying to expand slavery, literally. And people were like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking? Yeah, these are the same people that's running the show today. And they're like, oh, the party's flipped. Okay, where did it flip?
And you know what's ironic too is race discussions and race being like an issue is much more relevant on the leftist side.
Exactly.
How often do you ever see conservative Republican people like all hyped up about race issues?
Never. And if you look at those social experiments that people were doing on TikTok, it was one guy, he went to a Trump rally and he went to a Kamala rally. And he was wearing the opposite side's hat, right? So he'll go to a Trump rally wearing a Kamala hat. And they were like, okay, well, I respect your opinion. It's cool. They weren't divisive at all. Goes to a Kamala rally with a Trump hat on. Fuck you. You're a piece of shit. Why are you voting for a racist, sexist pig? And
yeah.
And it's always that side kind of doing that. And they're being super divisive and they want to fight them and all this
stuff. They're definitely the side of hate. And I think that's also what helps shift a lot of the middle ground voters. Because there's a lot of people in the U.S. who simply wanted to talk about Trump.
Yeah.
It seemed like some of the things that he did worked, but it was so taboo for a long period of time where even mentioning Trump might have done something right or questioning it was quickly shot down by the left.
Right.
And, free thinking people, they question that, why is it so bad to even talk about this subject?
Yeah. And I think that it comes down to it, people were just fucking tired. They were just like, I can't afford anything. We got to get this country, back to where it was. We got to make it safe. We're in wars. We're spending billions of dollars and sending it overseas and funding wars and all this other stuff. It's well, we have to pay for that at the end of the day. That's taxpayers' money.
Right.
So
that's why I'm really excited about DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
So we got Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy that are Trump just recently appointed them. I'm sure that
Yeah.
And they already printed out their target list, so they're going to be going through the DOJ. Oh, I saw the ATF. They're trying to disband the ATF.
Wow.
Oh, that'd be so great.
Wow.
Bring back machine gun.
Wow.
I'm a huge gun guy. So.
Yeah, of course. It's in the Constitution, So it's I think that. Here's the thing: when they're talking about getting rid of assault rifles and whatnot, it's a slippery slope only because you got to think of it like this: 4 years ago, we had COVID. Now they said, "Hey, put on a mask." Okay. 6 feet. Okay. Get the shot, or you lose your job. Okay. So it's they keep moving the goalposts, right? It's the same strategy they're going to do with the guns. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're going to take away this gun. Okay. Now we're going to take away this gun. Matter of fact, we're going to take away all guns. Okay. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
So they keep moving the goalposts.
Well, that's what they did in Australia.
Yeah.
Eventually it was okay, no automatics. Okay, no semi-automatics. Now only hunting rifles. And then eventually they took those away and killed people who refused to give them up. And then same thing up in Canada. Just within the last 4 years, they banned assault rifles. Mm-hmm. They always had a magazine capacity ban, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But now Canada's looking to completely outlaw all firearms. Wow. And, these are civilized Western countries. Mm. Gun violence wasn't even necessarily a huge issue there, where here in America, gun violence is a huge issue. That's because I think it's 80% of the world's firearm supply is here in America. Mm. But if you look at statistics, according to the FBI statistics on violent crime in America, same thing with ATF reports, the majority of crimes committed with firearms here in the U.S. are either from suicides or unregistered, illegally obtained firearms. Because the black market supply, you can't do anything about that. So all these firearms laws are really only impacting law-abiding citizens trying to legally acquire firearms and doesn't do anything to suppress crime. And most people don't understand that.
Yeah, because you're not going to have a bunch of registered gun owners committing crimes.
Right.
That doesn't. So you're going to register a gun just to go commit a crime. That doesn't make any sense, right? You're only doing it for protection, right, against these maniacs and criminals and everything else. That like I think, to be honest, I think that mental illness is a huge issue in America. This is why we have all these mass shootings and everything else, because these shootings aren't done by registered gun owners. This is, like you said, it's done by people who don't own a gun legally and whatnot.
Right.
And then those people, 9 times out of 10, are probably mentally ill. So I think that when it comes to the agenda, when it comes to big pharma, when it comes to it's layered.
Yeah, well, let's talk about why America in particular has such a huge mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Let's look at our food. Like, look at all the chemicals that only here in America people are consuming. Like,
Right.
even in our water, like every time you shower, especially in California, your skin is absorbing all
you
those
need filters. You need filters, and that's the thing. Like,
and a lot of these chemicals too are like scientifically proven. Like, the FDA, as corrupt as they are, like they have open source reports. Like, yeah, these chemicals can lead to such and such mental disorders, especially like for children.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these artificial sugars, these dyes. That's why like ADD, ADHD is out the wazoo here in America, because we're feeding our children all of these nasty processed chemicals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, it seems like there's a direct connection with what we're consuming and mental health, because mental health is out of control in America.
It is.
Just like you said.
And I think that, well, for one, we have BHT, we have red 40, yellow 5, like all these toxic chemicals. Like literally red 40 is crude oil. Like, why do we have crude oil in our food? Like, it's insane, right? So like other countries have banned them, like sane people. And when it comes down to it, like you said, like with the food and mental illness, they go hand in hand. I always ask this question: why is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the Food and Drug Administration? Because they're directly linked. The food, which is supposed to be your medicine, is linked to the drugs that they want you to take from Big Pharma. So they go hand in hand. You know, you have Kellogg's and all these other companies that feed you the poison and then give you the solution. You know, companies like Pfizer. The solution, right? Like Pfizer's 175-year history has never created a cure. Their biggest achievement is mass producing penicillin. Congrats. What is that doing? So you're in the distribution business. You're not in the health business. People don't understand that. So
right, because most pharmaceutical that's a Kamala flop right there. Most pharmaceutical drugs aren't designed to actually help you; they're designed to mask the symptoms.
Right.
So people get stuck on a lot of these drugs, like especially mental health medications, like sleeping pills, antidepressants. They don't actually resolve anything.
Right.
They're just suppressing the symptoms, and oftentimes they make them worse too.
Right.
So that's why I really support RFK and what he's doing.
Oh yeah, RFK.
Yeah,
RFK.
he's replacing that one tranny. What's his or her name?
I don't know the fucking name. I just seen.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. How'd that even happen?
Looks
bro?
crazy. Like, how is that?
Mental illness. That's what I'm saying. Mental illness. That's a part of it, and and people get up in arms about this, and I don't give a fuck. But we got to get back down to reality. Gender is a construct. There's only male and female, right? Gender is a construct, like money is a construct, like time is a construct. Like these things are created in a construct to where it's to control and confuse or whatever the agenda is at large. So yeah, I don't forgot the transgender's name. I don't know.
Yeah, I forget too, but I'm going to say him to be in charge of health when not only is he clearly not mentally stable, he looks completely unhealthy. Like he's overweight, like sunken in face and stuff like that.
And you have RFK.
He's an old guy, but
He's jacked.
Yeah.
He's doing like 100 like push-ups and sit-ups, and like that's who should be.
He's like super knowledgeable too. Like you seen those videos where he brings in like the trick cereal boxes, the Lay's, and talks about like all the ingredients. Like he's super knowledgeable.
He is, and that's who should be ahead of health. Like him being ahead of the FDA is amazing. Like he said, he didn't say he was going to disband the FDA, but he said he's going to take out huge portions of the FDA, like massive departments that we don't need, that's, you know, killing the country. So he's going to restructure all that, which is amazing.
Yeah, draining the swamp, finally. It's what Trump wanted to do during his first time in office, but he didn't have the knowledge. He didn't know how to appoint people to certain positions, which he openly admitted to.
Yeah.
Which I think shows incredible character on his end.
Right.
Being able to just flat out tell the country, like, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing the first time around, and I appointed the wrong people. I've
100%.
learned my lesson, and it's not going to happen this time. And based off of his pick so far, I see that becoming true.
Yeah, he has the Avengers now to the whole cabinet. Like, he has, you know, somebody who's actually healthy, a head of health. You know, he has the richest man on earth cleaning up the finances.